New episode of the Call Up, and we were overdue for a heat sheet, which we're going to be doing today, checking in on hitters and pitchers performing from AAA all the way down to low A. And a big reason why we're going to be able to do these heat sheets more frequently and potentially have a third episode most weeks now moving forward is because my buddy Elijah Evans is going to be joining the show. We're probably going to say once a week now moving forward,
Yeah.
right? So, first of all, Elijah, very pumped. You're taking on a much more significant role with us at Just Baseball on the back end of things, but that would undersell your ability on the other side, which you've done a ton with Future Sox. You've done a ton with the prospect content with us, and you've spearheaded pretty much all of the social efforts. We've shouted you out on the show a bunch of times. When we say Elijah Evans or Elijah, we're talking about this Elijah who has helped us really grow the social aspect of the call up as well. But I'm really pumped to have you on here every week now, get another episode back onto the docket again. And I don't know, it's just really, really fun to see you build and jump into this role. And I can't wait to check in on the performers every single week with you, man.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up. I appreciate you for making this happen, making this a possibility. It's been awesome for 3 years now. Throughout the last 3 years of my college life, to be a part of JB and just help grow in this company. And now, for me, it's like I look back and I'm like, man, I'm talking and writing and communicating about baseball now in a full-time way, and it's really an honor. And this is a whole other aspect of it where I can talk about prospects because you have been a big part of getting me into prospects the way that I've gotten into. I mean, I liked prospects, I kept up with them, and now the past year or two, I really and dive, deep into the prospect world with you. So I'm excited to be able to talk about it with you, man.
Well, and it really lines up well with everything that you've helped spearhead again on the social
Yeah.
side too, promoting the top players. Every time we update the top 100 list, you're the guy that's making sure that we're streamlining all of the graphics and the content and everything off of that. So even if you didn't like prospects, it would have been in your face 24/7. So thank goodness you do, because it's been really fun being able to do this with you and having you even help Jack and I as we iron out the top 100 list. And that's going to be a process you're going to be involved in. You're going to be more involved in the show, of course, too. Some may remember you did the White Sox episode with us. It was you and I about probably, oh, geez, time flies, probably 7 months ago now, six
Yeah.
months ago. And we'll be checking in on that again soon. We'll be doing a bunch of different types of episodes, but the heat sheets are the great starting point. And we got a lot of performers right now from AAA all the way down, varying levels of prospect intrigue. But that's why I love the heat sheets, because it gives
Yeah.
us an opportunity to just talk about players who maybe aren't getting as much shine.
Yeah, for sure, man. This was cool. I mean, I love listening to you guys talk about these and now getting to do these. It's fun because we get a blend of stuff. Like there's some guys on here that we've talked about a lot on the show that you guys have been harping on, top 100 guys, right? And then you get these other guys that are, some less heralded guys, some names that we maybe have an eye on or you've mentioned before, but we see them right now taking a huge step forward in their development and what they're doing lately as opposed to what we had seen from them even earlier in the season, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know you're going to walk us through some, and you put the names together. And it's funny because you asked, like, maybe do we want to cut some? There was too many guys that I just wanted to talk about, even some that wouldn't appear on a top 30 list, which we'll talk about soon off the top here. But I think we're going to start with Owen Casey and get rolling from
Yeah,
there.
well, we'll start with Owen Casey, man. This is a guy like you've been an Owen Casey guy for a while, right? This is a guy that we've talked about. He's been on the top 100 for JB for probably 2 years now at this point, right? From a guy who has that power, has that upside. He's blocked in Chicago, which makes it really tricky. But like this is the guy we're going to talk about come the deadline. I think. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's got to be a no-brainer, right? Last 25 games for Owen Casey, in AAA for the Cubs, he's slashing 337, 435, 598, 5 home runs, 9 doubles in that span, 14 walks also in that span, which is nice to see from a guy like Casey over that 25 game span. I mean, what do you do with him? He's already been doing this, right? But this is now a whole nother step up from him the past month from what he was doing in the first month of the season, at least.
Yeah, so he started hurt, and I think that was probably affecting him a little bit.
Yeah.
And then just kind of getting his feet back under him. It is not really a question about the offensive output and what he can do production wise. The question is the hit tool, right? And that's always going to be the question. And it's not going to be able to be answered until he gets a shot at the big league level. And in a lot of other organizations, I think he's getting a shot at the big league level by now.
Nope.
I agree. I think he's got to be one of the top trade chips on the market. And it sounded like he may have been considered in some trades earlier during the offseason, but given the injury that he had, I think it made it a little bit more difficult for that to be able to happen. I feel like he's got to be one of the most likely, if not the most, unless you can think of somebody else, the most likely prospect to be moved at this deadline, especially with him performing the way that he
Yeah.
is now. I think if you're the Cubs, you hope he continues this, goes nuclear for the next 3 weeks, maybe a month, and
Right.
you can sell high there and have him headline a package. But Strikeout rate has dropped to 28.7% in that 25 game span. That's still high, but
Yeah.
if he can hover anywhere below 30% with the plus EVs, 56% hard hit rate in that span. You
Yeah.
mentioned the batting average, despite the swing and miss. It's because he hits the ball so freaking hard. The BABIP is consistently going to be high. It's to all fields. It's a guy that plenty of teams are going to be eager to take a shot on. But that
Yep.
hit tool side of things is still going to be the question. What's fascinating to me is it's an 84% in zone contact rate, and it's a 74% overall contact rate in that span. Yet he's striking
Mhm.
out 29% of the time. So it seems like he's getting deep into counts, maybe not battling as well with two strikes. But I'm
Yeah.
just interested in that side of things and what's that last notch to be able to cut down the strikeout rate. And I think that might have to come at the big league level, just learning and getting acclimated there. But I mean, you're the one that pulled the numbers here. I'd imagine there aren't too many guys that have had a better 25 game stretch that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, I mean that's about it. There's a couple guys that we'll get to that are in a similar range, maybe at a lower level, right? But like in terms of a guy at AAA, still a top 100 guy. He's not, an older prospect, right? Casey's 22 still. It's
That's the
not
other
like we're
thing is
talking about a
prospect
26 year
fatigue
old, right?
candidate right
Oh my
here.
God, serious prospect candidate. And you get it because of course he's been in AAA now for a full year plus, right? But it's like he's still 22 years old and
Yep.
he's has 11 homers at the, OPSing 900 in AAA this season after a slow start too. So like this is a guy, like you said, trade candidate. Like the other trade candidates I think of are also Cubs. So like
Yeah.
he's one of the guys where it's like you got to find a way to move him for an arm, right? If you're the Cubs, I feel like.
If he's in AAA like any longer, it's his value is just naturally he's going to go stale a little
Exactly.
bit. It's going to be like that Ronnie Mauricio effect. I don't know he ended up tearing his ACL, but even before that, where it's just it gets to a point where you got to either find a way to fit him in at the big league level or make a move. And I think him really performing at this degree, like instead of hovering in the low mid 800s, if it's close to 900 and then this hot stretch that he's had, I think it puts even more pressure on the Cubs to act one
Yeah.
way or another.
Yep, 100%. This next one's pretty funny. I like this next one because I think this is a guy that you were incredibly high on a few years ago. When I started talking with you about prospects a few years back, you were high on this guy, and it's been a rough go for him because of injuries, not because of ability. Brennan Davis of the New York Yankees,
Former
former
Cub.
Cubs prospect, right? Another guy that coming from that Cubs pipeline. As much as it seems like he's been around forever with the injuries, still 25 years old this entire season. Brennan Davis got back to AAA after a stint in AA on June 3rd. Since getting back to AAA, Brennan Davis is slashing 375, 457, 825 with five homers, 12 RBIs across that 11 game span. He's been insane. And it's not that this numbers are coming out of nowhere. This is a guy who's been a productive minor leaguer pretty much every step of the way when he's actually been fully healthy throughout his minor league career. And that's, a 6.5 year minor league career at this point. But right now, he's in AAA with the Yankees and he is destroying the International League.
It's been really fun to watch. I will endlessly root for this guy, not just because of the fact that I was always high on him and loved him as a prospect. It's just the adversity that he has faced is just crazy. And like it seemed like he got beyond or got past the second back issue last year and starts to really swing it again towards the end of the season and then deals with that compound fracture when he like half slid into second base. It was gruesome and sad and it kept him out through the offseason and through the start of this season. So that's why we saw that late start. But they eased him into double A. He torched it there. And then in triple A, it's just been crazy, as you mentioned. He's a guy that I think is going to get a shot this year. I don't know exactly what it looks like with the Yankees in terms of when. And I know they just activated Stanton, who's going to fill the DH spot. But there's things that always happen. Guys go down. And with Davis, what's interesting is he can play a solid corner in either corner. But what I
Yeah.
think the role that he could actually fill is that lefty masher role where you take him on the short side of the platoon. He can play both corner outfield spots. And I mean, historically has just destroyed lefties. So even if you have some concern about the hit tool, which is valid even when he's healthy, like there's always been some underlying whiff. Last year, he had an 1100 OPS against left-handed pitching. And I mean, that's going to always play. And then the year before that, he had really just struggled overall with the back issue. So it's hard to take anything from those numbers. But then if you go all the way back to like 2022, even when he struggled in 2022 with the back issue, then too, 800 OPS against lefties through that part of his career also. So I think this is a guy that could at least be in the short side of the platoon, but still has the ability to be a really solid player if he can stay healthy. And clearly, like, it's still there. He's hitting the ball really, really hard. He hit home runs 114 plus last year. I'm just so glad to see him coming back off of another pretty serious injury. And as you mentioned, like the ability's still there.
Yeah, that's cool from a guy like Davis. I mean, those are the guys you root for, right? Those are the guys you want to see
Oh
stay
yeah.
healthy and just make it to the league and see what happens because the talent has always been there for 6 years now. We've seen the talent with a guy like Brennan Davis.
I can't imagine what it's going to feel like for him when he gets that opportunity, and I
Yeah,
really hope he gets it. 'Cause we were talking about it, Jack and I, like after that last like broken leg, I wouldn't have blamed him for just saying like I don't know how much more I can deal with this, like just my
right.
body and just trying to work back and the frustration. And I mean he just keeps going, and every time he's on the field, it seems like he's still got it. So I'm very much looking forward to hopefully him getting an opportunity. But also could be a filler trade piece too. Like not he's not going to move the needle on a trade
Yeah.
package, but like we saw Andres Chaparro traded for I think Dylan Floro. He was a minor league signing as well that was torching it in AAA. So one way or another, he's going to potentially earn himself an opportunity.
Yeah, as he should. Another guy to in AAA. This is our last AAA hitter to go here. A guy that I think had risen up the ranks last year really quickly because he was dominating the lower levels. 2023 first rounder Bryce Matthews of the Astros. Last year, I remember seeing him pop up and kind of. I mean, I knew who he was because the draft first round, right? But then he tears through the lower levels last year. Really establishes himself on most top 100s. Becomes the guy you're really looking at within that Astros system. Falls off a little bit at the end of the year at the upper levels this season, starts the year in AAA and he's still whiffing a lot, but he's
Yeah.
doing everything else pretty well. That's the thing with Bryce Matthews. In the last 2 weeks for Matthews, he got a 957 OPS, six extra base hits across those 12 games. Eight walks. He's stealing a lot of bags on the year so far. A guy with 41 walks, so he is getting on base at a good clip, even though he's striking out still. 19 stolen bases. Good extra base hits across the board. This is an interesting piece for the Astros, and I think for a team that's making a playoff push, Bryce Matthews with the whiff, like I still wouldn't mind that being an added piece into the fold there in Houston down the stretch here.
Another guy that could at least be a lefty masher as well. And that's always
Yep.
what I look for when you see a hit tool that could be 30 grade and you're concerned on that front. It's like, okay, well, if he doesn't hit enough to, achieve his potential, is there still a secondary
Yeah.
outcome here that you can look for? And I think with Matthews, it's definitely a guy that could at least, play some second, plug in at third and hit lefties. And this year it's a 63 plate appearance sample, but he's 19 for 52 because of the walks as well
Yeah.
against left-handed pitching. That's 365, 474, 654 slash line. It's 1130 OPS, and that strikeout rate drops significantly to about 24%. That's a huge, I think, just fallback option with him as well that he can fill that role potentially. I look at the data and I look at the numbers overall, and I understand Christian Moore is a little bit younger, but like if you're a big Christian Moore fan and you're willing to pallet the whiff and you're not
Yeah.
too concerned about it, you think he's going to prevail ultimately. I don't think there's a lot of things that Christian Moore does that Bryce Matthews doesn't. And you say, oh, but Christian Moore just got drafted. They're only about 5 months apart in age. I think Matthews brings a little bit more speed to the table. I think whiff wise, he's had more at bats to work on that professionally versus Christian Moore maybe can continue to chip
Yeah.
away at the swing and miss as he gets more, big league and professional at bats. But it's a pretty similar archetype. And it's one that I don't necessarily gravitate towards as much, but you're
Right.
seeing him just continue to mash at the upper levels, hedge the whiff enough. And if he can do that, there might be, an everyday second base outcome for him. But I do think that there's a great chance of him at least being short side of the platoon. And the way he's performing as well. Again, another guy that either is going to earn himself an opportunity with the Astros or could be a guy that ends up being one of their
Yeah.
better trade pieces because they don't have the best farm system in the world either. And I'd imagine that if the Astros are buying, teams are going to be looking at Bryce Matthews.
Yeah, I was going to say that makes sense. A middle infielder who has the offensive upside that he has, even with some of those concerns, right? Like that's a piece that could get the Astros a pretty solid get, I think, at the deadline, especially as a team that, is going to the way they've been trending lately. Like they're in control of the AL West right now, and they can control their destiny despite everybody, the last 2 years, it seems like they're going to fall off and they don't. So a guy like Bryce Matthews can be a piece that could, if they want to add a big arm, like him and some other, additional pieces could get them a pretty big arm at the deadline, I think.
I don't think that's crazy at all. And I think that the thing that teams will probably be encouraged by is it seems like Matthews is leaning into that three true outcome side of things a little bit
Yeah,
more, and he should. Like I think that's
right.
that's where he will probably find the most success. 47% hard hit rate, but only an 18% chase rate as well. So when
Hmm,
you're running an in
nice.
zone contact rate of about 71%, you're
Yeah,
gonna strike out. It's gonna happen. But the fact that the swing decisions are that good, he's recognizing spin that well, and the EVs are plus, that can be
yeah.
enough of a recipe to be that three true outcome second base.
And and a guy who can steal some bags too. So if he's that
Yeah,
three true outcome guy, right, you got some speed on the bases once he gets on base there too.
exactly, which is underrated because usually doesn't come with that archetype.
Exactly. Heading down to Double A, this is a lot of fun names. These are a lot of big names for sure in this Double A group, but definitely some really fun ones. We'll start with the Mets. Another guy that's dealt with some injury, has been in and out, but the past 2 weeks, I looked at these 2 week stats for Jett Williams, and I was pretty astonished to see what he's been doing lately, especially his past 2 weeks over 12 games for Jett Williams, 391, 491, 783. Jett Williams in 12 games with 11 extra base hits, 8 walks, a couple stolen bases. In the season as a whole, he's been good, but especially these past few weeks, we've seen a Jett Williams, at 21 years old in Double A, really start to look like, the best version of himself.
Another guy that you forget how young he is
Yeah.
because I think it just feels like he's been around for a while. The way that the guys that burst onto the scene and then, maybe slow down a little bit, deal with some injury, I feel like
Yep.
they almost get a raw deal because you expect them to fly up the ranks so much. And of course, just things happen. But then you're like, oh, I was hearing about that guy in 2022. Like, why am I still hearing about him now? I feel like that sometimes becomes the case, but you look back at the numbers and it's like, hey, but Jet's actually been pretty good at each stop when he's on the field. What I'm very
Right.
fascinated by too is going to be just how they manage his defensive situation and what that's going to look like there. Of course, he lost a lot of reps last year, right? He only played 33 games and got some reps in it at the Arizona Fall League, but only played
Yeah.
33 games due to, I think, a wrist issue that really limited him for most of the season. We saw him, play a little bit of center field, but they continue to really run him out at shortstop. And I think he has enough there to potentially get by. He could be an average defender, but I think it's an uphill battle to be that average defender. And that's where I'm interested. Like, do you start to see more reps in center? Do you start to see more reps at second base? What does that ultimately look like? But the most encouraging side of it is that you're seeing him really hit, as you mentioned, and the numbers just keep
Yeah.
getting better and better. And after a lost year, making up for that lost time, handling the upper levels pretty well. This is a guy too where I wonder, okay, he's clearly too good for double A at this point, probably close to a triple A promotion. And if he's mashing there, can he hit his way into a big league opportunity if something opens up? Because I think when
Right.
you look at a player like him, it's I think one of the best plate discipline grades we'll give out in the top 100. He's a small strike zone, leverages it really well, but it's not like a slash and dash type of hitter. He's got 18
Yeah.
doubles, 5 triples, and 6 homers. He elevates the ball consistently, and the EVs are sneaky decent. So it's a fascinating player that I don't know what it ultimately all looks like, and knowing what his
Yeah.
position would be would help. But no matter what, it's a good player, and the speed is becoming a bigger part of his game again too.
And for a team like the Mets, you look at next year, right, and beyond, right? Like this is a guy who the versatility, might not know where he fits, but like he can be a piece for that team. At the very least, if he's rotating between the middle infield, he can get some outfield reps here and there, right? Like if he can move around and be a guy that gets on base at a good clip, the speed is there. You've said, that 18 doubles is not for a 5'7" guy, like that's
And
impressive,
five
first of all. And
triples.
and 5 triples, right? He's got the speed, he's producing, he's hitting gap to gap, right? So it's like, I mean, 39 games at shortstop, right? So you said he's primarily playing there, but he does have 9 starts in center, 4 starts at second base, and a handful of starts at DH this year. So, like, I don't know, like maybe that's something where, you just have a guy who can play in the multiple spots for a team and he can move around and he can kind of be that versatile role for a team that's
Yeah,
competing for years like the Mets.
I think like the Luis Angel Acuna outlook, but like with the sliders turned up. Maybe he's not going to be able to play shortstop like Luis Angel, but if he
Yeah.
can get to a point where he can plug in there, he can play a good second base and maybe he develops into a good center fielder as he gets more reps.
Yeah.
The thing is most center fielders aren't 5'7", and
Yeah.
so like
Right.
I think some people will question like, okay, yeah, he's fast, but it's a lot more choppy steps to cover ground. But I think he can find a way to move quickly without his head moving too much and be able to track the ball more effectively. But what's fascinating is you mentioned just the torrid streak that he's on. And he's been moving around the diamond more in the last
Yeah.
week or so than he has, I think, in most of his professional career. It was a lot of shortstop, maybe center field once a week in the early going of the season. And then this is the game logs the last week plus. Center
Yeah.
field, second base, second base, second base, shortstop, shortstop, center field, shortstop, shortstop.
Oh,
To continue mashing too while you're moving all around the field
yeah.
is really, I think, impressive and encouraging. 15% chase rate is really impressive and encouraging,
Yep.
and a 30% ground ball rate. And this guy is consistently elevating the baseball.
Yeah.
It's crazy that he's only 21. I feel like he should be 23 in my mind. Like, it
Yeah.
feels like he's been around longer than that.
And you have him, I mean, you have him 42 on the top 100 right now. And like at 21 years old, if he does what he's doing right now with that versatility, like I could easily see him continuing to jump up that list a
Oh,
little in
no
this next
doubt.
update. Yeah.
No doubt.
Nice, man. Moving on to the next few, we've got a trio, and I just put these three together because these last few weeks stats for this trio in Double A for Milwaukee is pretty silly, and that's the trio of Brock Wilken, Luke Adams, and Cooper Pratt. I mean, this system, like we've talked about this a little bit, like I'm not sure you can make a case for another system being the best in baseball right now. Like I think Milwaukee's I'm not going to speak for you, but for me, when I look at the system top down, like it's hard to make a case for anybody else. And
I agree.
these three aren't even those elite guys necessarily, right? Like these three are the second tier of Milwaukee prospects, right? Behind, your Luis Pena and your Jesus Mate and your Jacob Mizorowski, who's, dominating the big leagues in his first start, right? So now you've got these three. In the past 12 games, Brock Wilken is slashing 326, 436, 848 with five homers and nine doubles in those 12 games. Also, nine walks to only 10 strikeouts for Wilken. Luke Adams, 318, 464, 705. He's got seven extra base hits in 2 weeks, 13 RBIs, seven walks in that span. And then Cooper Pratt, who's the guy that we have heard so many positive reviews about, at 316, 438, 395 in those games, eight walks, only five strikeouts for Cooper Pratt. The contact skills have been very clear lately. This trio has just been ridiculously good for Biloxi.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And what's crazy is you're gonna have like a Blake Burke on the way probably soon,
Yep.
sooner rather than later too, who didn't fit this stat query because the last like 5 to 7 games he hasn't been as good. But if you
Sure.
look at the last 25 games, his OPS is north of 900. Luke Adams is a crazy one to me because he was a guy that did actually appear on the top 100 list last
Yep.
year. But the more feedback I got about the defense and stuff like that, I was a little bit more concerned and felt like he was going to really need to mash. And I think he battled some injuries last year as well. He has to be the hit by pitch god of baseball, though. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody get hit more. And he's still getting hit all the time. He crowds the plate and like steps over even more so.
20 this season.
How many is it? 20?
20 this season.
11 in his
And
last 21 games. The dude just gets pelted and he just takes it.
crazy.
He gets his free base. But to your point, like he is mashing. It's a really weird swing. They've kind of quieted it down some, and I know that was something that Brenton Del Chiaro talked about on the
Yeah.
podcast not too long ago. But the EVs are there. He likes to pull the ball in the air, and he sells out for it. So I'm a little bit more concerned about his ability to do it compared to like a Brock Wilken, who his swing seems much more naturally conducive to being able to elevate consistently to that pull side. And I think Wilken can be that guy that's just gonna pull the ball at a really high rate. He's gonna strike out a little bit. He's gonna be that three true outcome hitter, but I think a really
Yeah.
successful version of it. And I think there's a lot of similarities to like a Reese Hoskins when I look at Brock Wilken, ironically. And Hoskins, of course, having a nice year at the big league level, bouncing back. But I'm just so happy for Brock Wilken, the human, as well. I mean, scary situation having to get facial reconstructive surgery last year
Yeah.
after getting hit in the face. Plenty of hurdles going on just in his personal life, and just to be able to bounce back and have the year that he's having. I can't imagine what that feels like for him. And I'll be honest, I was kind of skeptical that he would extrapolate this over the entirety of the season, but he seems like he's just getting better as the years progress. And you hit a key point, the strikeout rate in this smaller sample, but he has
Yeah.
cut the strikeout rate down. And it's not like it's coming at the expense of any slug. And he's clearly going to walk a ton. So this is just another guy that I think is leaning into the profile. He knows that it's going to be hard to hit enough. So why not be patient and pull the ball hard in the air, and you're going to get yours
Right.
enough of the time. And that's exactly what he's doing.
And And that's led to, 35 extra base hits in this, first 65
It's
games of the season, right?
crazy.
17 doubles and 18 homers already for Wilkin in double A. And especially not just in double A, but in the hardest league to hit in minor league baseball in the Southern League, right?
Yep.
That's something that I track a lot of, Birmingham Barons Southern League stuff. And like guys are not pumping homers in the Southern League like
No.
this very frequently, especially, high end guys like this, right? So 18 homers to start the year in the first half of the season in double A, and going along with that 57 walks, right? Like you said it, he's giving into that role of what he can be, and he's doing it at an incredibly high level compared to pretty much anybody else in Double A right now.
And that can play at the highest level as long
Yeah,
as he's able to stay committed to that and be equally selective against big league stuff and not miss the pitches that he can pull in the air. I do kind of see that potential to be a Reese Hoskins type of player if it works out. And then Cooper Pratt, the big thing with him is it's easy to forget he's 20 years old at Double A, and I've always said he's like a sum of his parts type of player where nothing's going to
yeah,
jump off the page, but he does a lot of things well. But if you're a player like that, you definitely can't be chasing at a 35% clip. And that's what he was doing for a lot of the year. But in this hot stretch that you've talked about here, like it's the first time I've seen that chase rate, even in a small stretch, drop below 25%. I do think that's huge for him.
yeah,
He's still gonna it's gonna be processing growing into the power, and the field of hits always been solid. But when I look at this stretch, being much more selective, that's why he's walked more than he struck out over the last dozen games. That's why you're seeing him just be more consistently productive. It's too much of a like 50s across the board type of profile. And right now the power is
yeah.
below that. But to be giving away strikes by via swing decisions or just via being too aggressive. So I think that's the big wrinkle in this, and that's why he's been performing better. He's just been significantly more selective, and I know that the Brewers preach that, and I've been talking to him about that, and it seems like he's starting to be able to apply it.
Yeah, 100%. That system is incredible. I try to tune in whenever Biloxi plays Birmingham because I just that system as a whole is just so fun to watch right now, and all three of those guys are a big part of it. Heading our last double A guy, this is one we've talked about. You've talked about plenty. JJ Weatherholt in St. Louis in the Texas League. I could have pulled like three different time frames for Weatherholt because I was trying to decide like what's the most like fun to talk about. And I settled on just June, just JJ Weatherholt in June. In the month of June so far, not including the game that's going on right now, has played
Oh,
13 games in June. 444. Yes, that's his batting average in June. 444, 576, 644 for Weatherholt. So he's 20 for 45 in this month, in addition to 13 walks, only 8 strikeouts. This is got to be one of the better hit tool guys in minor league baseball at this point. And right now he's just, I mean, 444 in the month of June is like it's just video game
it's
numbers for Weatherholt right now.
it's outrageous, and he's in double. Like
Yeah,
I know there's some guys from the class that are already in the show, and but
right.
it's not like he's in high A. He's doing this in double A, and what's really impressive to me is you mentioned the hit tool, and that's definitely the calling card for him. But if you look at the last 20 games, he's got a hard hit rate north of 50%. So, I mean, he's
Wow.
hitting the ball hard. And then when you talk about just from June 1st onward, the biggest shift I see is it's a swing that can be flatter at points, and that's okay because of the hit tool and the swing decisions. And he hits
Yeah,
the ball hard enough where it's okay, just line drives to all fields. But you definitely wanted to see that ground ball rate get a bit lower. It was hovering around 50% or too close to 50%, for my liking. Last 13 games, which is just this month of June, that ground ball rate's dropped from like 48, 49% to 35%.
wow.
So it's still a lot of line drives. It's not like he's selling out for lifts. Like the average launch
Yeah.
angle on hard hit baseball is about 10 degrees, but he's just hitting line drives. Like he's just got it
Yeah.
off the ground more consistently. That's a great recipe because that will put him in a position where he's going to hit his homers, but a ton of doubles, and that's why I see him really thriving is just
Yeah.
hitting those doubles to both gaps. And then when he catches one out front a little bit more, being able to pull those balls out of the yard. But he hit one backside off of Steffen that I mean to
Yeah.
left center field, 104 miles an hour at 410 feet. That's telling me like, oh, okay, he's starting to backspin the ball a little bit more now too to the backside. Like he's seems like he's evolving and becoming this fully well-rounded hitter now that I could be one of the best prospects in baseball. I think by the end of the year, and I mean he might be playing his way into a big league opportunity. But the problem is they don't even know where to put Thomas Ajazi right now. So
Yeah.
if JJ Weatherholt keeps hitting, I'd imagine they may just end up waiting until next year, and just let him keep
Yeah.
working on the defense.
You think Weatherholt sticks at short? Because this season he's splitting. He's been at short for 29 starts and he's been at second for 12 starts and then 8 starts at DH. So you've gotten a little bit of a blend from him. Last season you saw him pretty much only play short in single A when he first got there. This season you are seeing that every third day or something at second base compared to last year.
I lean no. I think
Yeah,
he can maybe get by there if he
sure.
really needed. I don't love it there. I think the arm's a little bit light. He's a good athlete. I think he gets by on that athleticism. He's definitely got good instincts. I think if you needed him to plug in there, he wouldn't be
Right.
a liability. But I don't think I don't think he projects best there. I think he'd be
And
a
the
really
Cardinals also have
solid
Mason Wynn too, right? So it's like you
exactly.
don't have to stress about that too, you know.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I do think he profiles best as like an above average second baseman.
Yeah. It's a good player though. It's a good
Oh,
player for sure.
especially with
Yeah.
that bat and you're seeing I think you're seeing him gain a little bit more confidence in the legs again because of course with that hamstring issue I'm sure they didn't want him running a ton.
Yeah.
But he's starting to steal some more bags again and that's become a little bit more of a part of his game and I mean he has been I feel like he's not getting enough attention either. Like
I
I don't
haven't
know
I haven't seen enough about him, honestly. I mean,
I
it seems like he's yeah.
you wouldn't think he's hitting 320 with a 914 OPS this year with just like how
And that's after
little
like a really cold stretch in like mid-May and early to mid-May too, where he was hitting like 240. And now so it's been, I mean, again, it's been 400, it's 440 in the past 2 weeks. And then in addition to, 400 over the past almost month at this point. It's
yeah,
crazy.
he needs more shine for sure. More
Yeah.
walks and strikeouts on the year as well.
Yeah. I mean, 20, what is it? Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Um,
Well,
one other
yeah.
thing with him too that I'm just fascinated by is
Yeah.
if they try the third base thing at all. And the arm again is a little bit light, so like I think it probably profiles best. He'll probably profile best at second, but
Sure.
I don't know. It's just it opens up another door. You imagine Nolan Arenado is not going to be there forever.
Right.
Maybe Sajazi is their guy. They prefer him at third. But either way, I think it's just the idea of an infield of Sajazi, then you have Mason Wynn, and then
Yep.
JJ Weatherholt at second base. I mean, that's going to
It's
be a
fun.
fun,
It's
young,
fun.
controllable infield
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah. That's a really good group. And all those guys are still very young too. I think people forget they're all still, yeah, they're still young guys, definitely.
No doubt.
Let's head down to high A. This is one of my guys. People that listen are going to have to get used to an occasional White Sox guy getting mentioned that you may not even know who it is, and I don't think most people will know who this is, to be honest. But this is the guy that me and you have both pegged last year as kind of one of the White Sox better draft picks, just an interesting spot. Coastal Carolina guy, Sam Antinachi in high A is has been really good since the start of his professional career. Like last year, he was exceptional in single A when he first came up after the draft, and now this year he's dealt with like one or two on and off injuries. But in general, in Winston-Salem High A this season has been really good. The past 2 weeks for Antonacci in 11 games, he's slashing 405, 511, 622. He's stolen 7 bags in those 11 games, 6 walks, only 10 strikeouts, and some better hard contact and EVs than I expected to see from a guy like Antonacci. This is a guy whose discipline and hit tool is the calling card for him.
Oh
That's
yeah.
been his calling card in college. He led, he had a batting title at one point in college, right? He was a JUCO guy, made his way to D1 Coastal. He was always getting on base. But now you're starting to see, when I watch him, a guy that's maturing as a hitter. And yes, he is going to be that hit tool contact guy, but he's starting to really produce and hit the ball at a harder rate than he did before. I've seen some homers from him. Last week, he flashed a 105 homer that was one of the hardest of his career, I believe. Like you're starting to see a guy who's playing all over the infield, gets on base a ton, steals a bunch of bags too. He's a pretty plus runner at this point, 18 stolen bases now across 46 games this year. I'm excited to see where Antinachi goes, and I do think he's someone that's going to start to pop into that top 10 range within the White Sox system.
Yeah, when I was texting you about him and after the draft, I didn't have a
Yeah,
ton other than the fact that it was just that swing is too good to not play
yeah,
at least at the lower levels. Like it's going to be a guy that's going to hit out of the gate, and I was bullish on the swing. Did not see it working this well though right
yeah,
away. And I agree with everything you said. My question is this because I'm just trying to think about what the big league role is because I think now you're seeing a bat that is good enough. Now, my question was also that I was a little worried that there just wasn't going to be enough impact there. So it's like, okay,
yeah,
the hit tools potentially plus, the approach is good, but where's the impact going to be? To your point, it it seems like there's just enough. He's
yeah,
a 90th percentile of 102.5 miles per hour. Hard hit rate is 37%. I think that would be like a tick or two above league average
yeah,
for that level. I think that's more than enough when you've got what he's got going on. But What do you got on the glove? That's the interesting
So
part for me.
yeah, it is interesting. He was drafted as a shortstop, and he played some shortstop, but he played a lot of third in college. I think he's played mostly third and second. He's been rotating between the two. He's got a couple looks at short this year. It's not a shortstop profile. I don't think he quite has the range for it. The arm is fringy at third. I actually like the way he looks at third in general. I think he can handle the position. It's just more of a fringy arm at third versus probably a borderline plus at second base, right? So that's kind of where it differentiates. Like I do think his experience playing third in college and his instincts are good enough to play third. I just think with the arm, it probably looks like a second base profile long term, which limits the upside a little bit. But still, like a guy he's gonna walk, he's not gonna strike out, he's gonna steal bags, and his hit tool is great. And what's cool with Antinachi, what I really like watching about some of his at bats, and you'll see this when if you look at some film of his in the future, he has a really unique approach where he will attack like instantly. Like he attacks first pitch all the time, but then if he doesn't get a first pitch he likes, he's patient until he for the rest of the bat. So it's super fun from that profile, and I think it works well for what he does as a hitter, where he's aggressive early and then he takes time and he sits back and he really works counts after that first or second pitch that he attacks and jumps on. So I like seeing Antonacci hit, and I just think that's a guy who, even if it is at second base, I think there's just enough there with the impact, like you said, where the speed and the approach and the hit tool will lead to him at least getting to the upper minors and being a big league utility, even if he's not an everyday second base guy.
Well, and I like what you bring up because like if he has an opportunity to ambush, sometimes
Yeah.
pitchers are not going to be as worried. They don't want to waste as many pitches with a guy that's going to
Yep.
be patient, spoil, and grind out in that bat. So hey, I've got enough juice. If I can look for something I can catch out a little bit further in front and pull for extra
Yeah.
bases. But if I yank it foul or if I take a strike on the outer half, I'm fine going deeper into account
Right.
because his his barrel control, it's not just the in zone ability. I love looking at the out of zone contact for guys like this because that's
Yeah.
usually what's going to translate to being able to sustain the profile that you have as the hit tool presumably degrades some as you get challenged to higher levels. What I love is, I mean, it's 80% contact out of the zone, so he's able to spoil a ton. And something I like to look at is like what percentage of two strike pitches that you see actually like put you away. So it's like basically third strike rate. And the lower that is, it says a lot about your swing decisions with two strikes, but also your ability to spoil with two strikes. And I think anything around 18% is average, and for him it's like 14%. So he's really solid with two strikes. I think that's an important aspect of it too. And I like the profile at second base, man. Like if it's
Yeah.
contact and OBP and just a grinder,
For sure.
that can. I think the speed aspect is huge. That's actually a
Yep.
part of his game. I mean, this could be an average regular at second base. I think without a problem with
Yeah.
where the bat's a ball is and the fact that there's enough impact here.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. And people that follow my stocks content have seen me harping about him all year because when he's on the field, he changes the game for that team. I mean, Winston-Salem, he was out for a week with an injury. He comes back to Winston-Salem's lineup, and then Braden Montgomery starts hitting, Joel Perez starts hitting, and these other guys that are behind him in that lineup with him hitting in the top of the order have started hitting the second that he came back from that injury. And you can feel his presence where he works those counts and he gets those bats. And those are guys that, like, at the very least, it's a good guy to have in your organization. And those are guys that I think will make the big leagues, even if he's not a star player at any point in his career.
No doubt. And I mean, I'd look at it. It's a player that sees a lot of pitches. It's beneficial for the team, and puts pressure on defenses. 787 OPS this year, with two strikes as well is always something solid that you want to see.
Yeah.
He's definitely gonna be a tough guy to punch out. Before we get to the next player as well, and we got several more, and then also low A a little bit. And we got some arms also. I do want to tell you about Ethos. Life insurance is important, and Ethos makes it easy to protect your family's future. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. There's no complicated process, and it's 100% online. No medical exam required. You just answer a few health questions and get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. You can get same day coverage without ever leaving your house. Life insurance is more affordable than you think, and with Ethos, you can get that free quote and customize a rate that fits your budget. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, some policies as low as $2 per day, billed monthly. Ethos is a trustworthy company that disrupts the traditional life insurance industry. As of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the number one no medical exam instant life insurance provider. 3 million families have completed their applications and trusted Ethos to help them find the right coverage. Ethos has a 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 2,400 reviews. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos and get your quote at ethos.com slash justbaseball. That's ethos.com slash justbaseball. ETHOS.com slash justbaseball to check it out. All right. You ready for a few more high A hitters?
Yeah, we got two more. It's a pair on the same team. I did a couple of these little duos just because when you look at the numbers, the top two hitters in the past 2 weeks in the Northwest League both come from the Seattle Mariners organization. That is Michael Arroyo and Colt Emerson. Totally different spectrums here. One being, a higher end top 100 guy, one being non-top 100, still high performing prospect. Arroyo in the past 2 weeks, the last 12 games for both these guys, Arroyo with a 385, 520, 769 slash, four homers in that span, five walks, only seven strikeouts. And then Colt Emerson, who has had a bit of a slow start to the season for, one of our highest prospects in baseball. The last 2 weeks, man, 400, 491, 756 for Colt Emerson, nine extra base hits in those 2 weeks, nine walks. It looks like Colt Emerson is figuring something out in high A right now. That's for sure.
It felt like only a matter of time with him. And
Yeah.
what's interesting with Arroyo, too, I mean, a guy that didn't get off to the hottest start in the world, but now is really mashing. And just one of those players that I'll never totally understand. Like he's talented, no doubt about it. But 5'7" with a kind of a very uphill swing that as 100% leaves him susceptible at the top of the zone, and I think leaves him susceptible to just being in and out of the zone, kind of pulling off of sliders a little bit too. And when you look at the contact rates on four seamers and sliders within the zone, it's about 74%. But he just continues to mash, and in that 30-game stretch, like it's just been ridiculous. If you look at since legitimately the last 30 games, he's an OPS over 1,000 and 10 home runs. And then you mentioned the most recent stretch of what, like 12 games.
2 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
or like if you go back just to the start of the month, like he
Yeah.
hits a 1,200 OPS. He is not slowed down, and so it's a player that I've had my doubts on, and continue to just wonder how it's going to play at the highest level. But I'd be silly if I just ignored what he's doing. You can't. He just continues to produce, and I think the fact that he's handling velocity a lot better this year is encouraging. The thing with a guy like him, though, it's mad defense at second base. So he's going to have to
Yeah.
really mash.
He's got
But
to
he's
hit.
mashing.
Yeah.
It's a 46% hard hit rate. So, I mean, he's hitting the ball hard consistently, and he might just mash his way to big league success. It's a weird profile for me, and the
Yeah.
underlying is always provided some concern. But the 19% chase rate, I think, is what's really encouraging, and only a 37% ground ball rate.
Yeah, that's a guy he's hitting, and he's only 20 too. Like
That's the
he's
other
20
thing,
this
too. He's only
entire
only 20.
season too, and he's 14 homers, 14 doubles this season after last year where he had 23 homers, right? Like it's 2 years in a row of really high end offensive production at the lower levels. So like I mean, right now he's got between last year and this year he's got 121 games in high A. At 20 years old, are you giving that a chance double A soon? Like it's not slowing
And
down,
that's
and
and
he's
if he's
he's even
smashing in
lowered.
double, like if he's smashing in double, I think at that point, like I gotta just
You got to
swallow
rate
my
the guy,
pride
right?
here and say like, maybe I don't get it, and you can't ignore the production and even the
Yeah.
underlying data. Like there's some yellow flags with the whiff, but you can't argue against the angles that he's hitting the ball at and the exit velocities and the improvements against high velocity fastballs. So that's a guy that I think if he's doing it at double A, I'll buy in even more. But he's definitely convincing me that he might just
Yeah.
be able to hit enough to make this whole thing happen. And then with Emerson, the reason why he's made the leap on our top 100 list is the glove. I mean, watching the improvement defensively at shortstop, where he looks like he can be a well above average defender there. When the question at one point was, can he stick there? I think really take some pressure off the bat, and that's why you can have some more patience. Also, a guy that's sneaky, still just 19 years old,
Yeah.
but then now seeing the bat come to life, if he starts swinging it like this the rest of the year, he's going to be one of the top overall prospects in baseball because the raw ability is there. And now you have a guy that can play a good shortstop who has plus raw power, who has showed that he has an above average feel to hit as well. And I think you can really start to dream there. It's another guy that I'd imagine, I haven't, put the video side by side yet. I'd imagine he made a subtle change mechanically, because if you look at the first like 45 games or so of the season, even if I go to the first 30 games, he was he
Yeah.
was putting a ground ball rate up of 60%.
Oof.
Since then, it's 45%, which was 30 games. But then when you just talked about the stretch of about a dozen games, that ground
Yeah.
ball rate's down to 30%. So
Wow.
I'm going to dig into it after this, but I would
Cut in
venture to
half
say
is crazy. Yeah.
you
That's
cut it in
nuts.
half. Yeah, like
Yeah, that's
there
nuts.
has to be a mechanical shift there that's allowing him to do
Yeah.
that. So very encouraging if that's
Something's
the
working
case.
for him for sure. And
Yeah, I
again, you
mean,
said
you can't
19
just
years old. Yeah.
cut it in half,
Yeah.
like without doing something tangible.
Yeah, half is crazy. One last high A guy, and then we'll do one low A guy before we get into pitchers. Charlie Condon, I've been wanting to ask you about this for a minute, man. I'll be honest, because this is a guy who, really struggled out of the gate professionally, right? Like you saw him last year. It didn't look good for a bit, for sure. In his first stint of high A, and then this year he spent a little time in rookie ball, coming off of an injury, and then he gets up this year, and his first 25 games in high A now. 359, 491, 500. That's a 991 OPS for Condon in that time. 22 walks and 20 strikeouts, right? So you're seeing that strikeout rate come down a lot. You're seeing the walk rate come up a lot compared. I mean, last year, this is a guy who last year was at 4 walks and 34 strikeouts in his first stint of high A. The same amount of games this year, exact 25 games last year, now 25 games this year, 22 walks compared to 20 strikeouts. A huge
Yeah,
difference
jeez.
there. And you're seeing him, recently start to get into some power, 7 extra base hits now in that span. The power hasn't quite come to the extent that you want it to come from his profile, from a fourth overall pick, right? But you're seeing a huge shift in plate approach and just adjustments made. And this looks like the guy who was the first round pick last year.
The approach, I think you hit the nail on the
Yeah.
head, because that's a huge part of this. My concern with him, and it's relative, right? Like when we were a little bit lower on him out of the draft, he still was a slam dunk,
Yeah, for sure.
top 10 pick and a slam dunk top 8 pick.
Mhm.
But he now looks like the player that I saw out of the draft. That was like,
Yeah.
okay, there's some concerns, but there's also some strengths that are undeniable. And what it was out of the draft was, oh my gosh, this guy's going to pulverize fastballs, and he's going to pulverize hangers. My concern was, what is he going to do against higher quality spin?
Yeah.
I didn't think that he would just come out and just get blown up and then be so rushed that he's chasing. Like that became like a compounding issue that then I think it resulted in him being almost overhated. It was like an overcorrection, I think by some that had him as the clear top bat or top two bat in the draft. But now I think you're seeing him get back to those strengths, but you still do have some of those underlying concerns that it's going to take some time to work through. But that's something that shouldn't have stopped him at low A. Like having trouble with spin, it shouldn't fully challenge a college hitter with that kind of success when you demolish four seam fastballs. The swing decisions is a huge aspect of that. And the fact that he's cut that chase
Yeah.
rate down to 21% this year is massive. And then the fact that he's just back to crushing fastballs is I mean, he has to do that. And
Yeah.
this year against four seamers and sinkers, so just fastballs in general, he's hitting 489 with a 1351 OPS. And that's a 61 plate appearance sample. That's a 227 pitch sample. Like
Yeah.
that is disgusting. But I talked about his swing and his path and how he can kind of leak out with the front side, barrel leaves the zone too quickly. That's still there. It is still pull dependent. And against sliders, he's hitting 147 this year. So
Hmm.
the difference, though, is he's only chasing them at a 13% clip. So I think there was a clear realization of, okay, this is my deficiency. I'm going to need to get
Yeah.
better at hitting these sliders. But a huge help will be to recognize and lay off of them more consistently.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that is massive. He's going to need to improve upon a 474 OPS against spin,
Yeah.
but it's a lot more manageable when you're recognizing and not chasing. And I was a little concerned that pitch rec was going to start to become an issue too. So seeing the pitch rec get better and the four seam ability or just fastball ability get better, he can make a living off of that, especially when he's going to be calling home to a park that cuts down the depth
Yeah.
and quality of secondaries and spin. So you hope that he can improve that to get to the ceiling, but this is a guy that can crush fastballs and crush mistake pitches to having on his way to having a good career. And it's just nice to see him back on track. I think he's a top 100 prospect. I think because of the lack of defensive value, and some of the concerns swing and miss wise, it's probably closer to back end top 100 guy. But I've seen him just punt it off lists already, and I think that might be a little harsh for a 22-year-old who's coming off a wrist issue and definitely looks a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. Last hitter we got here is within the Dodgers system, Eduardo Quintero. This is the guy who moved up very highly on the top 100. I think he was, I mean, he jumped into a pretty decent featured spot on the top 100. He went to 76 in his debut on the spot, right? You know, it's not just jumping into 99, right? He jumped all the way into that 70s range for a guy who's very young, still developing. The last month of games, so a 22 game span for Quintero. 365, 472, 659. In that span of 22 games, 19 walks, 15 extra base hits, and 17 stolen bases as well for Quintero in that time. This is a tooled outfielder, it seems like. I can't say I've watched a ton of him in single A so far, but he looks like he's really, becoming another one of those teenage star prospects for the Dodgers right now.
Oh yeah. And the fact that he can stick up the middle, and he, like, the last game
Yeah.
was 4 for 4 with 3 doubles and a walk. Like he had another game in the last week where he stole 4 bags as well. Um, he can impact the game in a lot of ways. What's interesting is he was putting the ball on the ground a little bit too much last year, so he improved his swing path to be a little bit more conducive to lift and loft. With that came some more whiff in the early
Hmm.
going this year, where and it's natural as you kind of rework the path. Oh wait, I'm swinging underballs that I'm normally, I was normally getting to. I need to catch it a little bit more out front, or I need to make these adjustments and just get more comfortable with it. And it affected his in zone contact rate. But now that he's gotten more comfortable with his new swing and path, you're seeing
Yep.
that in zone contact rate now jump. The power numbers jumped because he was hitting the ball in the air more. So that was already encouraging. But now that you're seeing, okay, the power was added. Now the hit tool is getting back to where it was before too.
Yep.
That's a really fun combination here, especially for a guy that can motor and that can play a good center field. So to see those contact rates steadily climb while he's maintaining that ground ball rate way
Yeah.
lower than it was last year, this is a guy that could absolutely be a rocket ship. And on top of that, he's chasing less than 20% of the time. You mentioned it, 19 years old. He's due for a high A promotion, I think, soon. He's too good for this league.
Yeah. And like you said, all of that offensive development, along with the fact that he's on pace for 70 stolen bases and a center fielder,
Holy
right? Like
shit,
that's
70?
he's 33 so far. He's on pace for, yeah, on a 110
Yeah.
on a single A pace, he'd be at 70 stolen bases. So
Yeah.
it's like, 33. He already topped last year's stolen bases, and it's June 19th.
Yeah, that's crazy. This is you're and people are gonna say, "Oh, Dodgers, whatever." Like,
Yeah, of
this is a
course.
guy
They're gonna
that's
say
gonna
it, but
climb. He's gonna climb. Get ready. Get
yeah.
comfortable with it because the glove again. When you're playing a good center, that really makes this profile an enticing one.
Yeah, 100%, man. Let's get to some pitchers. This is my even more of my area of what I love looking at, some pitchers. And one is somebody who's already had big league experience, but I had to put him in here because what he's been doing lately has been ridiculous. Joe Boyle of
Hmm.
the Tampa Bay Rays here. This is the guy who's only 25 years old right now. Still has had that one game he came up this year and he threw like almost a no hitter through 5 innings. I think, right? I think he had his one appearance with Tampa Bay this season. He threw a no hitter through five
Yep.
with 7 strikeouts.
And then
Goes
see
back
ya.
down. I know, yeah, exactly. They're trying to manage the innings, whatever you want to say, sure. But his last 4 starts for Joe Boyle, 18 innings, has given up 1 run on 8 hits in those 4 starts, 29 strikeouts across 18 innings. It's silly stuff. I mean, he's dominating the International League. It's just every start has been like as impressive as the next for Boyle. How soon are we going to see him, and what is kind of the holdup there with Boyle right now?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. But the 4 walks against 26
Or
strikeouts.
walks?
That's what just keeps screaming at me. And
Yeah,
I mean, I'd imagine at the very latest it'll be around deadline time. I mean, the
yeah,
Rays, we were talking about in the Just Baseball show, like the Rays can subtract and add from within, right? Like
right.
you could trade a Zach Littell and then get a nice little haul and then just bring up Joe Boyle. And who knows, he could end up putting up better numbers. He's averaging 98 with the heater, and it doesn't even need to have crazy characteristics. It has some sneaky carry to it, but it's 98 and he's throwing strikes. It's always been about throwing strikes for him, and he doesn't
Yeah.
even need to be. We always talk about Dylan Cease, right? And like none of these guys are going to be Dylan Cease, but he doesn't need to be 50 grade command to be somebody that can turn lineups over because he's so damn nasty. When it's in the zone, it's going
Right.
to be a swing and miss. And when it's slightly out of the zone, it's going to be a chase. That's the thing, too. He's getting a lot of chase on the slider. Um, Opponents are hitting 142 against him this year. I'm glad you
It's
shouted him out
silly.
because he's not a
Yeah.
prospect. And I did see people ask, like,
Right.
if he was a prospect, like, where would he be on the top 100? He'd definitely be on there somewhere. I don't know where
Yeah.
exactly. He's 25, but like 6'8", finding the strike zone all of a sudden. You're going to have to weather the storm. There's going to be days where,
Yeah,
I'm
for
sure
sure.
he loses it. But it's kind of like the Mizorowski conversation. The days where he has it will be much more worth it
Yeah.
to deal with the days that he may not.
And even this season, even those like quote unquote blow up games, he hasn't given up more than 3 runs in a single start this season, all
That's a good
season.
point. He
Like
really
it's
hasn't
been
had a blow
it
up.
it's been 2 games of 3 runs with a couple walks, and other than that, it's been lights out. Like there hasn't even been one of those games where he had a blow up, right? He had one game where he got pulled after 2 innings. I'm not sure if it was a command thing or just maybe an innings limit in an inning, but like other than that, like it's been consistently good. He's been making 5 inning starts every week, pretty much. I mean, and it's not giving up runs. It's striking out a ton. I mean, the last 3 starts is 9, 8, and 9 strikeouts, dude. I mean, it's
And,
it's it's really good.
and the games where like he's walked 4+ 3 times, so or four
Right.
times, excuse me, no, 3 times.
Right.
Sorry, but even in the games where he walked 4+, 4 innings, he was still able to turn you through. And like nowadays,
Yeah.
if on your bad day you can get to the fifth inning,
Good.
that's not the
Cool.
end of the world. I mean,
Yeah.
even in a game where he walked 5, he went 4 2/3. He gave up 2 runs. He walked 5. Like you talk about the Edward Cabrera experience with the Marlins. Like it's
Yeah.
a worse version of that. And like the Marlins have piloted it for a long time for a reason.
Yeah.
Those guys have a lot more leeway nowadays, and I think Boyle has a chance to be one of the higher end versions of that.
Yeah, for sure. Next guy is one of 2 Santa Barbara guys. Gotta get with some of my alum from my alma mater here. Michael McGreevy, another technical, guy that has already debuted at this point, right? He debuted last year for the Cardinals. McGreevy is one that I think the Cardinals are in an interesting spot because if they move a veteran or two, you've got pitchers ready to go there in St. Louis, and McGreevy is the prime example of that. His last 4 starts, 22 and a third, 3 runs allowed, 25 strikeouts, and only 4 walks in that span. He doesn't walk people. He is getting outs. He's not dominant necessarily. Like this is, I mean, 64 strikeouts across 61 innings is perfectly fine for him. But the 12 walks all season in 12 starts from McGreevy, and consistently soft contact from a guy like that, I mean, he looked good when he was up in St. Louis last year to me. And now you got a guy, sitting in AAA, like, ready to go.
And he looked great. I mean, even the game and the perfect McGreevy example was they brought him up to throw against the
Mid,
Dodgers,
yeah, spot start, right?
and the Dodgers were on him. They definitely hit the ball pretty hard, but that guy still got through 6. Like he gave up 8 hits, he scattered them. It was
Yep.
4 earned, and he got through 6 innings. And like that's the thing with a guy like McGreevy, he's old school where he's going to throw 200+ innings if you let him. I really do believe that, and this is the
Yeah.
situation where we just talked about this on the Just Baseball show where another soft sell, not really sell, like it's kind of
Yep.
a buy and sell at the same time. Trade a Palante or a Fetty, and I genuinely do believe, and I know we can get a little bit too aggressive with this with prospects sometimes. I like to think I got a lot better with this. Is like I don't like to bank on prospects helping me win immediately if I'm running a team.
Sure.
But I genuinely do believe if you subtracted whatever the weakest link is from the Cardinals rotation right now and you plug Michael McGreevy in there, I don't think you lose anything in the short term. Long term, I
Yeah.
think he's going to be better than some of those guys. But I think in the short term, you might even gain because.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
are you even losing much if you swap him for a Fetty? Like, I don't think
I
maybe
think
a
you
little
might. I
bit,
think you
right?
could be
But I don't
better.
think you're losing. I don't think you're losing much there. I really don't.
I don't either because there's a few reasons why. He gets ground balls. He strikes out more guys
Yeah.
than Fetty, and I think even at the big league level he will. And he holds runners on in a game now where you've got stolen
Hmm.
bases galore. I don't think I've seen a professional pitcher hold runners on better. There's nobody quicker to home plate than I think than Michael McGreevy
Like that.
in AAA or in the major league. So you look at, I think he only allowed like 2 stolen bases on him last year. Um,
Wow.
that's a really important wrinkle for a ground ball guy that's going to just try to churn out innings and get outs, keeping those runners at bay, scattering hits. Big way to do that is by keeping runners held on. He fills up the strike zone. His stuff is ticked up this year. Like McGreevy was that pitchability 90-mile-an-hour guy. He's averaging 94 on the fastball this year. It's not like he's throwing soft anymore. Like this is decent stuff. I don't know if there's a higher probability number 5 starter that still has prospect
Yeah.
eligibility in the minor leagues right now. Like I understand that the ceiling is also a 4, but I don't think there's a player that I would sleep more soundly betting on to stick as a big league starter for a while.
Yeah, and you need those guys. Those are guys you need, and that's a guy in St. Louis that can make an impact. Before we get into Double A, this is the bridge from Triple A to Double A is Chase Burns. This is the guy who's made two Triple A starts now. Had been in Double A, dominating there since. I mean, since the beginning of May, hasn't allowed more than 2 runs in a start. Has only allowed 2 runs once. He's allowed one or less runs in 7 of his last 8 starts, dating back to being in Double A, or 8 of his last 9. And then since getting to Triple A, his first 2 starts in Triple A, 5 1/3 with 2 runs, 7 strikeouts, and that was a day where he didn't have his command really. He walked 4 in that AAA debut, probably a little revved up, right? Getting on that first appearance in AAA. Comes out his second outing yesterday in AAA, 7 innings of 3 hit, 1 run ball, 7 strikeouts, no walks in that game. I mean, Chase Burns had figured out Double A, right? Like it was very clear Double A was just like he was dominating every time he went out there. Gets to AAA, has a so-so first start, not even a bad first start there, and then his second start yesterday already looks like he's got AAA halfway on lock at this point, right? Like, I mean, he just looks great.
And it's an adjustment, right? You have a tighter
Of
strike
course,
zone. You have the challenge system
different
with that,
ball.
and you've got just more disciplined hitters.
Yeah,
So I think that was part of it. In that, I'm sure there was some jitters and excitement in that first AAA outing, and to see him just bounce back immediately like that, I think was
yeah,
as exciting and as encouraging as you want to see. And also the fastball average velocity was back up as well. Like he averaged 99 in that last outing. I've been floored with Burns in terms of the command. I did not expect the command to be this good from a max effort guy. And you mentioned the 4 walk outing, but aside from that, and again, he still maneuvered it. It was 5
yeah.
1/3, two
Still got
runs,
around.
7 Ks. Uh, he has not walked more than 2 in a single outing, and he's had more outings with 0 walks than 2 walks. So like
Crazy.
that is not. I didn't think he'd walk the world or anything, but I thought it would be just 50 grade command and at best and hover there. But this command has been above average, and it's not just the fastball. Like it's a slider strike rate is 70%, and the changeup. Like I want to see him continue to throw that more, and he has. I think that's part of the reason probably why the walk rate crept up a little bit. I'd imagine they said, "Hey,
Yeah,
welcome to AAA," but now that you're in Triple, we want the last thing that you need to get to the show is we need to see you throw that changeup more than 8% of the time. We want to see that usage at 13, 14, 15, whatever it was. The last 5 starts, he's thrown it 15% of the time for a 78% strike rate. If Chase Burns has that changeup in his back pocket, that's going to make his fastball better because I know the fastball's
yeah,
been great. I still do think at the highest level, like that plane, it could get hit if you don't locate it well, but he's locating it way better this year. The changeup's going to make that pitch play up as even more. He looks like a frontline arm, and I definitely underestimated the pitch ability on a guy like him. Given how it seems like high effort, but he's just a freak athlete. He's as fun to watch as anybody right now.
yeah. I mean, that changeup. I remember coming out of the draft, like the 2 pitch mix obviously was what was the calling card for him. So if he's a guy that develops a changeup, that's a good quality offering there. It's pretty hard to not see him being very impressive and effective at the higher levels, right?
100%. I mean, he didn't even throw it in college. He threw like
Yeah, I don't remember.
5% of
I
the
don't remember
time.
ever seeing him throw it when I'd watch him in college. Yeah,
And I don't blame him. He didn't need to. But
yeah,
I honestly didn't think it was because he didn't need to. I thought it's just he didn't really have it with consistency. So
sir.
again, that was an underestimating there. And I mean, having that pitch at his disposal as well. I mean that's scary with the breaking ball as well. I mean that's arguably the best slider that you've got right now. Opponents this year hitting 125 against this slider with a 320 OPS. It's just stupid stuff there. So I think we'll see
Silly.
him at the big
Yeah.
league level sooner rather than later,
And
and he could help this Reds
I
team.
was gonna say the Reds are playing good ball, man. I mean, the Reds are in a spot where if you get a guy like that, yeah, he's gonna have some growing pains for sure. But if Chase Burns can show even part of his, true upside for the Reds this season, like that helps that team now, probably.
Especially with Louder out, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
shocked if they try that, and it would be really fun. And Hunter Green, depending on his timeline and everything as
Yep.
well, but 100% could be a help for them, depending on how they want to manage his innings and everything like that. He has thrown a lot of innings,
Yeah,
not yet, but he's on pace to, right. It was 5 every time out. Now he's gone 7, 5 1/3, and 7. But I don't think you're having him go 7 unless you're thinking about him as a potential help
for
for
sure.
you this year.
Yeah.
So I think they're building him up for a reason. But it's also because he's been so economical. He hasn't thrown more than 90 pitches.
Yeah.
Last
It's
time out was
crazy.
the season high at 88 pitches. So he's again just been a pitcher. He's not a thrower. I thought he'd be more of a
Yeah.
thrower, and it's been so fun to watch him exceed, my expectations there. It's been really cool. Before we get to
Yeah,
the next pitcher, our last break.
cool. Getting into these last few arms, we got one who I will call you out a bit here. I think he was one name that kind of slipped the radar a little bit going into top 100, and then it was we were talking about it, and you were like, "Man, this guy's like he's a just missed guy. He's gonna make the list now once you graduate a couple more guys because he's just been that good this season." Jackson Wiggins of the Cubs, in Double A right now. His last five starts, 26 innings, 6 runs allowed, a 2.08 ERA in that span, 35 strikeouts in those 26 innings, only 9 walks for Wiggins. It's been this all season, and he's on the hot sheet because we're talking about the last month of games. But like the numbers I just gave are basically in line with his numbers all season, right? In Double A, between High A and Double A now, a cumulative 192 on the year, 56 and a third, 70 strikeouts, 23 walks. He's getting whiff. He's not walking a ton of guys. He's not giving up. He's giving up 2 homers all year after giving up 4 homers all year last year. He doesn't get crushed really much. Jackson Wiggins is another guy in the Cubs system who is developed really, really well in the past year.
They draft so well, man. We were just
Yeah.
talking about that. But yeah, I was so pissed I didn't get him into that top 100, and he's gonna be the next guy that enters in there,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I had him as a breakout pick. I don't know what I was thinking there,
It
for not
happens.
putting him in there, but it has been so impressive because this is a 6'7" righty off of TJ that had
Yeah.
command issues before at Arkansas. So you have a guy that had command questions coming off of TJ, and yeah, he battled that a little bit last year, but finished the year really strong, filling up the zone. And then this year, it's just been amazing to watch him get more and more comfortable at repeating the delivery and filling up the zone. And like he's another guy that can get away with a near 10% walk rate, because he's
Yeah.
going to strike out so many hitters. He's averaged 97 with the fastball, and over the last four starts, it's actually been closer to 97.5. The
Yeah.
changeup feel has been so impressive for a guy that's big, tall, and throws hard like that. And the slider has been really good for him. The one thing that's interesting is in that span, the 4 games, 66% fastball usage. I
Hmm.
don't know why. I mean, I know why because it's dominant. How do you tell a guy to throw his four seam fastball less when in those four starts, opponents are 4 for 47 against his fastball? Like he should just flip his glove
Crazy.
and throw it.
Yeah.
But that's a testament to what he's got going on here, stuff wise. He's it's a high release, but he's 6'7", so it's all relative. He's getting 19 vert, so he's getting just this run and ride with it. He still
Yeah.
gets a little bit more extension than you think. And some of these fastballs are getting like 20 vert and 13 horizontal. So it really is just like run and ride that just seems to get on hitters. He can dominate with the heater clearly, but as he continues to show this feel for the
No.
changeup, I think this is a guy that could be a monster. And honestly, we're talking about buyers. Like if I'm making a trade with the Cubs, Wiggins is probably one of the first names I'm asking about. Even
Yeah.
I know like Owen Casey's technically ranked higher, but just because of the upside and what could be here,
Yeah.
I think I'm just as excited to potentially get a Jackson Wiggins.
Do you think the Cubs will be kind of hesitant on that though, given that they kind of have their offensive core more figured out? They kind of the bigger thing with the Cubs going forward is going to be that pitching
Oh
staff. I
yeah.
do think they're going to try to protect a guy like that
Oh yeah.
probably.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
you'd be very apprehensive to move a Jackson Wiggins because they could use him, no doubt about it. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, they got a lot of position players. So we're gonna say, oh, well, why don't I point you over here? But teams like to get arms as part of the package as well. And I imagine that they're gonna get asked a lot about Jackson
Yeah,
Wiggins.
for sure. I can imagine. Going to a guy that's a little bit less on the radar, who popped onto my radar when I was actually doing Garrett Crochet mock trades this offseason. And I was working on looking at Boston's farm system and saying, obviously, Brady Montgomery, and ended up being the headline, one of the headline pieces, right? A guy that I threw in as a secondary piece was Connelly Early. This is the guy in the Boston system who was ranked pretty highly in your ranking of Boston. His last 5 games, Early has 5 starts, 25 and two thirds, with 7 runs allowed in that span, 36 strikeouts. And it's just exciting stuff. He's getting a lot of whiff this season. He's been good for the most part throughout the year. And a guy that within that Boston system, I think, you're starting to see some more pitchers develop really well in that organization right now.
Mhm.
In the past couple of years, that's been a big emphasis, obviously. On the season, a 2.17 ERA, 74 strikeouts across 49 and two thirds for early this year.
He's throwing harder than he ever has. He's
Mhm.
throwing more strikes. He looks nasty.
Yeah.
It's just it's a little bit of like this three quarters release. slight crossfire that just seems he's long and lanky, and it seems like it gets on hitters quick. I really enjoyed watching him throw in the futures, or not the futures game,
Yeah.
spring breakout. But yeah, I mean, he has been dominant, and it's a pretty diverse arsenal, right? You got this four seamer with decent characteristics, some I would say slightly above average ride, and it's a lefty at 94 getting that ride, and then the changeup has been dominant for him. But what I love is you got four seamer, changeup, slider, curveball, and they're all distinct shapes. And I think that's what really makes him an uncomfortable at bat. The four seam command, it's funny, that's the pitch that he actually commands the least effectively
Mm.
compared to the secondaries. He lands the secondaries at a really high clip. To 67% strike rate on secondaries and a 59% strike rate on his fastballs. But over this stretch of about four starts here, he's been much more consistent with the fastball command, 65%
Nice.
strike rate, and I think that's been a big part of this as well. What's really fun with him too is last four starts at 64% ground ball rate while also getting the whiff. This is a high probability back end of the rotation start.
Yeah.
I think you can still dream on a middle rotation guy because the velo continues to tick up as the season's progressed.
Yeah, and a five pitch mix for a guy like that, right? Who's shown he's thrown mostly four, right? But he's flashed to fifth too, right?
Yeah, he's got like a sweeper that he'll mix in there as well,
Right.
around like 4 or 5% of the time, but which is a great pitch left on left. Yeah, you got five different offerings you got to worry about from this guy. Like it's fun to watch him throw.
And solid improving command as well from him right now. You had I think I'm looking at the Red Sox thing. You had a 40 current command, 50 future command, and like it's already kind of trending in the right direction right now this season for sure.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, if you look at the first seven starts, it was a 13% walk rate. In the last five since then, it's an 8.7%.
Yep. It's a huge difference maker. Last double A name. This is a guy you've been kind of on all season, so we can breeze through it. But Gage Jump has been really good lately. This is a guy who's taken, he was already having a great season, and he just continues to do that right now. His last five starts, 26 and 2/3, 27 strikeouts, 9 walks in that span, a .98 WHIP. I think this stood out to me with him is only 17 hits allowed in those last five starts combined. On the season, it's just been great overall. He's definitely been one of the biggest pitching risers, I think, in
Oh
in the
yeah.
baseball at this point in the minor leagues. I mean, it's been, a 1.94 on the year, a .92 whip. He just really doesn't give up anything. It's not like, I mean, the walks are 17 walks in those, 13 games this season. It's been such a good season from Jump, and I'm curious to see, being a 2024 draft pick, like he's going to be one of the first arms from that class. I mean, obviously there's been some, but like he's going to be one of the first 5 to 6 arms from that class to make the bigs, it feels like.
Which nobody would have imagined.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
earned that, but then also circumstance, I think, also.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that you're probably happy rushing a little bit more because you look at that big league situation, and even if he's not fully at his potential yet, he's going to be somebody that could probably help that
Yep.
rotation. What I like is just the contact, as you mentioned, is just consistently so weak. I think the average
Yeah.
exit velocity against him is like 87 miles per hour. He's OPS against of like 515, and
Crazy.
even what's funny is he's been so damn good that even in these last four games, you could argue that he was better before it. But he's still a guy that has to be shouted out here because he just continues to shove. It's been cool to just see him not really miss a beat in Double A. And another guy
Yeah.
that I'm just kind of watching the fastball velocity as he handles a larger workload. And I mean, this is a guy that's gone 8 innings. He's gone 6 innings, six. He had a stretch where he went 8 innings, six, six, seven, six.
Yeah.
And the fastball velocity is still sitting in the mid 90s. And he's a guy that ticked up. Usually the dudes that jump, 2 ticks, I always want to see it. Can you hold that the whole year? How's it looking? And he's holding it without a problem. And that's really good to see.
Yeah, totally. Maybe we should do an episode on just 2024 draft picks because I'm looking at this list now of stats and I'm like, man, there's a lot of pitchers, especially the pitching side. There's a lot of draft pick pitchers from last year, and I picked another one, but like, there's so many guys on this list that I'm like, wow, that's
We
a,
are
a
due
draft
for a
guy who's
draft
really
check-in,
ticking up.
honestly.
Yeah, the 2024 draft, so maybe we'll have to get that in the book soon. But Carl Steffen, I hope I'm saying that right, is the
Yeah.
next one I have. Carl Steffen within the Blue Jays organization in High A right now. This was a second rounder last year out of Mississippi State. He has just had a great season altogether, and especially lately, I've noticed just the numbers continue to trend in the right direction. His last five starts, he's given up 25 innings, 6 runs allowed on 20 hits. 6 walks to 27 strikeouts, and has been doing basically that all season. Stefan on the year has a 2.1 ERA across 13 games, 75 strikeouts and only 13 walks for this guy who's just been pounding his own and just getting outs throughout the entire season right now.
It's crazy. Everyone's talking about Trey Savage, and understandably so, but these guys have
Yeah.
kind of been moving in tandem. Now you
Yep.
had Savage just get the double A bump a bit quicker.
He's not far behind though, I don't think.
No, because like how much more do you need to see Stefan throw? I always go
Yeah.
back and forth as Cal Stefan or Cal Steven, but the last 5 outings for him, really. So since he got up to high A, it's 5 outings.
Yep.
The fact that he is just it hasn't really blinked. I think people were talking about okay, well, the Savage and Stefan are like they're at low A. Of course, they're going to overwhelm these hitters. Yeah, sure. But high A, it really hasn't been any different for
Yeah.
him. If anything, it's been just as good. And another guy that's just turning lineups over. It's 5 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 5 innings. He's not walking anybody. That was diving into his stuff when we updated the Blue Jays system was really fascinating. And I was glad that write up, like that farm system write up, came after the start of the season because I totally
Yep.
would have underrated Stefan because I mean, yeah, second round pick, some intrigue there, but I didn't have some of the data and the specs on the fastball now, and he averages 93, but it's a barely slightly above average release height, and he's averaging 20 vert. So I
Oof.
mean that's plus carry on the fastball. He's
Yeah.
he's doing it from 6-7 extension, so he's getting slightly above average extension with elite vert, and he's just filling up the top of the zone at a 72% strike rate on the fastball. So that's going to play, and that's going to continue to play at the more challenging levels. And I love the verty fastball guys with the splitter off of it, and it's exactly what he's got. Him and Savage have a lot of similarities. It's a fastball, gyro slider, and the splitter. So I think the Blue Jays were chasing an archetype there.
Yeah.
But I love the verti fastball tunnel with the split, and it's
Yep.
really working well for Stefan as well. Who's 65% strike rate and a 41% chase rate on the splitter because the four seamer really sets the tone with the carry and just
Yeah.
tunnels well off of it. He looks like a guy that you could fast track as well and could be a good number 4 starter.
It's a pair of very good arms there to keep an eye on in Toronto for sure. I mean, they've got that's a nice setup for
And
those.
they
But
needed
I
that.
mean, is there a chance they buy with one of those guys? I don't think you trade to Savage because there a chance. I think they hold both those guys where they're
I
at right
think they
now
hold both.
organizationally. Yeah.
I think the Blue Jays, the way that they buy, which is interesting, is like so. Another guy that's not really prospect anymore, but is performing really, really well over the last few weeks is Joey Loupe, and I know
Mm.
he's settled in now and is putting up great numbers in AAA. But I look at their outfield situation, and right now they've got a ton of guys injured, so they're not in a position to subtract too much. But if you look at their 40 man, they've got a lot of players that are upper minors, big league, back and forth, like on the 40 type of prospects that maybe don't get you something alone. But you package a Lope
Yeah.
Fido or a Jonathan Class A or some of these guys, maybe Elvis who's starting to swing it better, and maybe you can package them with some guys that
Yep.
are further off in the minors and make a trade happen. But it'd be really hard to trade one of those two
Yeah.
guys
You got to keep
because
those
of
two for now.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at the rotation and how thin it's going to get soon.
Yep.
Uh, but you got to be thrilled if you're the Blue Jays because they went very pitching heavy. They've had a really frustrating go with keeping their pitchers healthy and getting the most out of them. And so far, I mean, this has been as encouraging as they've ever really had from right away pitching results. And Johnny King at the complex has been looking really good as well. Another arm that they took
Yeah.
out of high school.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for the development, I think, with their pitching side right now. Last name to wrap on here is another UCSB shout from me because this is the guy who I watched for the past 3 years in college and has been someone that I liked as a pitcher, but there wasn't as much of a vision for a long-term big league guy. Ryan Gallagher within the Cubs organization was a sixth rounder last year, and has really come into his own as a pitcher. He was command in college, like that was his thing. He would just locate the fastball. It was never a super effective fastball, but he would locate it. The changeup was solid, but it was really just like mixing, matching, finding a way to get outs. He was the ace for Santa Barbara, on a staff with a projected first rounder in Tyler Bremner and next year first rounder in Jackson Flora, right? And he was the ace of that staff the last 2 seasons just because he was so steady. Gallagher's last 4 starts in high A right now. 23 innings, only 13 hits allowed, 4 runs, 4 walks and 32 strikeouts. He leads high A in strikeouts in his past 4 starts. On the season in general, Gallagher's got 10 starts, 63 strikeouts across 47 and two thirds. But it's really been this past month or two, for month and a half for him, where you really start to see this guy blossoming into a pitcher more than just, a guy who could command. Like it looks like the stuff has taken a step forward, which is something the Cubs keep seeming to do with these guys they draft, these pitchers they drafted at college.
I mean, they just keep nailing the draft, and it's interesting. So he gets crazy vert on the fastball as well.
Yeah.
To high release point because he's 6'3", 6'4", uh,
Yeah.
and works over the top, but he really stays behind the baseball. 6'4" release height, or like 6'3", is average about 5'9". So in that release height bucket, I'd say the average, just off the top of my head, the average induced vertical break on a fastball is probably going to be a little bit above 17 inches, maybe
Yeah.
closer to 18. He's getting 21 and a half on the fastball. So that's elite carry. And then what were we just talking about? Guys with changeups off of that. His changeup has been dominant. 41% in zone whiff rate on the changeup. That tells me that it looks like the fastball until the very end. Like that, it's one thing. There's changeups that perform really well because guys chase a little bit more, or roll over on it a little bit more, and then there's changeups that perform really well because they dominate within the zone. And those are the
Yep.
changeups that, to me, end up looking more like the fastball until it's too late, and that's like the Bugs Bunny type of changeup. That's what I think he's got going there. And then the slider has been really effective for him as well. This is an intriguing arm, no doubt about it. And I'm interested to see, sometimes those vert guys at 92, it gets a little bit harder to get the whiff at double A, triple A. But
Yeah.
when you can sequence and you have the other pitchers working off of it, it could work. And the 21 vert really sets the tone. He's dominated through high A. I think he's probably due for a double A promotion soon too.
Yeah.
And they're letting him go deep. Like he threw 102 pitches the
I
other day.
mean, that's all he did in college too. I mean, this is the guy who was churning out 110, 120 pitch starts when he needed to for Santa Barbara. And that's what I remember seeing him in college last year. And I was like, man, this guy's a dog, but I don't know if the stuff is ever going to quite get there. And it looks like the stuff is getting there, in addition to him already being a guy who churns innings and commands well like he does.
Well, important note. I mean, he was what, throwing 88, 90 at Santa Barbara? What was he sitting there?
Yeah, he was sitting like 89, 90. He was sitting, I think he was about 90 for most of his last season. Yeah.
So, I mean, now at 91 to 93 and maybe
Yeah.
grabbing a 4.5 with those characteristics and with that pitchability, you mentioned the strike throwing. That's a big uptick. Like clearly
Yeah.
they helped unlock something there with him. And yeah, he could be a back end rotation arm.
Yeah. It's fun to see. This has been fun, man. This has been cool. I'm excited to keep doing this with you. This is we got to a lot of names today. Maybe we'll cut it
Yeah.
down a few names next time. But no, it's been great. It's a lot of guys performing, and there's going to be a lot of guys to keep discussing throughout the season. It's going to be great.
Well, I'm pumped to also, of course, to be doing this with you, but also to just have another episode, coming out
Yeah,
weekly.
for
I know the
sure.
audience will be pumped on that as well. And yeah, we'll keep getting you involved on different things, but the heat sheets are a really exciting start and a lot of
Yeah.
fun just to be able to bounce around the league and talk about everything. Um, of course, so since people can get more used to you, I'll link your social media accounts in the episode description. Jack and I think are going to be doing an episode tomorrow. We will confirm with you then on what exactly it's going to be. But also, Yankees top prospects probably going to be coming out sometime
Nice.
next week. But yeah, dude, I'm really excited to have you involved on these episodes, and very excited to have you aboard, of course, on multiple fronts and just baseball. And I know the audience has got to be pumped up about it too. I hope everybody enjoyed and get used to hearing Elijah's voice. And we look forward to talking prospects with you most likely tomorrow.